Respected brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala states in the Holy Quran, in Surah An-Nisa, which is the 4th chapter in the Holy Quran, verses 20 to 21. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. وَإِنْ أَرَدْتُمُ اسْتِبْدَالَ زَوْجٍ مَكَانَ زَوْجٍ وَآتَيْتُمْ إِحْدَاهُنَّ قِنْطَارًا فَلَا تَأْخُذُوا مِنْهُ شَيْئًا أَتَأْخُذُونَهُ بُهْتَانًا وَإِثْمًا مُبِينًا وَكَيْفَ تَأْخُذُونَهُ وَقَدْ أَفْضَى بَعْضُكُمْ إِلَى بَعْضٍ. In these beautiful verses, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is addressing a disturbing custom that some Arabs had. When Arabs would get married, they would give the wife a dowry. This was common before the religion of Islam. In many societies around the world, when men would get married, they would offer a dowry to their wife. Some of those Arab men wanted to divorce their wife and marry another woman. Maybe they're interested in another woman. A younger woman comes along and captivates his heart. He wants to get rid of the first one and marry the second one. So what would he do? He would accuse his first wife of adultery and indecency in order to justify not giving her the dowry. So he would go out in his community amongst his family and he would say that my first wife is corrupt. He would accuse his first wife of adultery, destroy her reputation, and that way he's off the hook. He doesn't have to give her the dowry anymore. She's corrupt. She's betrayed me. She's committed this very shameful act. That way I'm under no obligation to give her the dowry. This was a strategy that some corrupt men would use. God reveals these verses in the Holy Quran. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling these men, if you want to divorce your wife and marry another one, you have no right to withhold the dowry, even if the dowry is a camel load of gold. You cannot take a single dime from it. That's unjust in God's law. And you cannot accuse your wife and ruin her reputation to justify not giving her the dowry. You have to give her the dowry and you have to protect her reputation. And then the Holy Quran gives beautiful moral and spiritual advice to men and women who get divorced. Sometimes when men and women get divorced, it can be a very nasty divorce. The Quran is saying, okay, now that you have to divorce, at least don't make it a nasty divorce. You can part with each other, but peacefully. وَكَيْفَ تَأْخُذُونَهُ وَقَدْ أَفْضَى بَعْضُكُمْ إِلَى بَعْضٍ. Don't forget all those good days that you spent with each other as husband and wife. You did each other's favor. You served one another. Don't just ignore all of that history. Be on good terms, even if you have to separate. Respect one another. Divorce in a dignified way. This is the spirit of these two verses. Now, in light of these two verses, in our discussion today, I will be addressing a very important question that many of you have in the community. This question is about what a wife takes away with her after divorce. As you know, according to default Islamic law, when a husband divorces his wife or when she requests a divorce, the wife is entitled to the dowry in the marriage. According to Islamic law, a husband must provide a dowry to his wife when they get married. And he has to pay it whenever she demands it. Some people think that the wife only is entitled to the dowry, especially the latter part of the dowry, which we call the mu'akhar, only if she gets divorced. That's not the case. If now you're financially capable and your wife wants the dowry, you have to give it to her. Even if it was a big sum that you agreed to, like $100,000, you have to give it to her when she demands it, and you have the financial capability to give it to her. Now, when there is a case of divorce, the husband gives his wife the dowry and she only walks away with the dowry. Many people say this is unfair. After 30 years of marriage, you only give her the dowry? She sacrificed. She held your house together. She raised the children. You know how much domestic work mothers do that goes unnoticed and unappreciated by society? All those years, 3 decades of hard work, you want to give her some lousy $10,000? That's not going to do justice to her. So many people find this Islamic default law troublesome. And they don't find it compatible with the justice of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, especially in our modern society. How do we understand this default Islamic law? And are there any solutions? Are there any alternatives? Can you put any conditions in your marriage to get more than the dowry or not? We will have an academic discussion to answer this question. Before we answer this question, my dear brothers and sisters, it's important to know that in Islamic law, while a woman has the right to work, she is not obligated to work. Islam in no circumstance forces or obligates or compels a woman to work. It's her right. If she freely decides to work, that is her right. Otherwise, society cannot compel her to work or obligate her to work. Whereas the husband, he is obligated to work. As a husband, according to God's law, you are compelled and obligated to work. As a father, you are obligated to work to provide for your children. This burden has been lifted from women. Yes, they can choose to work if they'd like to, but it is not imposed on them. Now, someone can say, okay, but if a woman is not going to work, then who is going to take care of her? In Islamic law, someone must always take care of a woman. So if you're a daughter, you're not married yet, your father is obligated to take care of you. When you get married, your husband is obligated to financially take care of you. If you're a widow, if you're a divorcee, and you have no means to support yourself, it is the obligation of the Muslim government or Muslim treasury to spend on her. This is expressed by Imam Ali alayhi salam in his instructions to Malik al-Ashtar. Malik al-Ashtar was one of the great companions of Imam Ali alayhi salam. He dispatched him to Egypt to be the governor of Egypt. And he gave him a set of beautiful recommendations. One of them is the very famous one that you're all familiar with. He told Malik al-Ashtar to treat everyone equally, even those who don't share your faith. And he told them, because everyone out there are either your brothers in faith, if they follow your same religion, or they're your counterparts in humanity. They're human beings who live in your society. So I want you to see everyone from the lens of humanity. These are the beautiful instructions that Imam Ali alayhi salam gave to Malik al-Ashtar. Amongst the instructions that Imam Ali alayhi salam gave to Malik al-Ashtar is basically social welfare. He told him if there are sick people, disabled people, they cannot support themselves, I want you to appoint and fix a salary for them from the public funds of the state. Give them a salary. Who else is entitled to a salary? A woman whose husband is not spending on her. Now, why is he not spending on her? Let's say he's broke. He's broke and he's unable to spend on her, and she still chooses to stay in the marriage. It is the obligation of the Muslim state to spend on the woman. If there's a widow who lost her husband, if there was a woman who was divorced, it is the obligation of the Muslim state to spend on her, to fix a salary for her, to protect her dignity, and so she's not compelled to work. She chooses to work, she can work. But if she chooses not to, that's fine. The Muslim state will sponsor her. This was the instruction that the Imam ﷺ gave to Malik al-Ashtar. So in Islamic law, a woman ideally is never forced to work. There must be someone taking care of her. Now today, I know the world is different. You may live in societies where that's not the case, where a woman is obligated to work. And in fact, many are advocating for this. There are many today in our Western society, many parts of the world, they say, why does Islam make a distinction between men and women when it comes to the financial obligation? Just like the man is obligated to work, let the woman also be obligated to work. So you find some feminists, for instance, they find an issue with this law. Just like you put the burden on men, put the burden on women. What, you think we're not resilient enough? You think you're only tough and women are not tough? Just like you obligate men to work, obligate women to work. And give them equal rights. Financially, let everything be equal. Because in Islamic law, the inheritance of a woman is half that of a man. This is stated in the Quran. And there are some other financial differences. So why do you have this inequality? Now our response is, God obligated the man to spend, so he needs that extra income from inheritance. Because the financial burden is on you, the man. So you need that extra income from the inheritance. Their response is, well, put the obligation on the woman too and give everyone their equal share. That is the objection that they have. So today you find many advocating for women to work just like men work. And then if they divorce, split half and half, and that's very simple. No need to go through these laws that put a distinction between men and women. Let's analyze this without emotions, rationally, based on scientific evidence, to see, is it appropriate to obligate and compel women to work or not? And I will share with you statistics from our society here. While Islam gives women the right to work, Islam does not find it suitable to obligate them to work, to force them to work, to compel them to work. Why? Look at the statistics. Statistics today show that in our society, women who work full-time, their stress level is double that of men. Official statistics here in Canada, in the United States, and in the UK. For instance, one study that was done in 2016 by the British Health and Safety Executive, they looked at women over the age of 25 who were working full-time. The study revealed that their level of stress was far more than the level of stress that men had to go through in the workplace. And this continued throughout their work years. So this was one study from the UK. And many other studies done in the United States have confirmed this fact. One study looked at 100,000 male workers and female workers, and it concluded that the rate of stress amongst the female workers was 1.5 times more than men. So women, when they are working full-time, their level of stress is higher than men. That is one concern with obligating women to work. The second concern is burnout. You know, work leads to burnout for many people. Work burnout is serious for women. And there was one study done by LinkedIn that looked at 5,000 Americans, and they looked at women in that category. And the study concluded that the level of burnout amongst women in the workplace was far more than men. So now you have work-related stress. Now you have burnout. These are official statistics from our society, my dear brothers and sisters. Listen to what the American Psychological Association says. It says in a survey that women are more likely to develop physical and emotional symptoms of burnout than men. This is even worse for married women. Married women who are working full-time, they display these signs of stress anxiety, depression, burnout more than men. And more than women who are single, who are not married. So when you look at what's happening in society, what's happening is we have put women in a very difficult situation. Now, this is not to say that women should not work. Women have the right to work, but they should not be compelled or forced to work or obligated to work. Today, your society, if you don't work full-time, judges you. Sisters come to me. They tell me, say it. I'm educated. I have a medical degree. I have a law degree. But now that I'm getting married, I want to commit more of my time to my house. My own society mocks me, rebukes me. You studied all those years and you invested in all that education to sit home and raise a child. They ridicule me. They underestimate what I do. Women come to me crying because of their society. And by the way, I have to say this. They say that those who are actually rebuking them more are women, not men. Like her friends, her circle of friends are rebuking her. The men seem to be more okay with it. It's the women who've rejected that. Imposing this burden on women, Islam does not recommend it, does not find it appropriate. If she can work, she likes to work, that's fine. Give her the opportunity. But for her to be compelled, society will see her as, a failure if she doesn't work. That is unfair to impose that on women. Now you may be wondering why. Why is it that women experience more work-related stress than men? Are there reasons that lead to that? Scientists, psychologists, sociologists have looked at a number of reasons. One reason is a biological reason. According to Dr. Hammond from the University of California in Los Angeles, she wanted to see why women and females in general experienced more stress at work. So one reason that she was able to pinpoint was basically the hormones that they experience throughout times in their lives. When a woman becomes pregnant, her hormones change. Menopause brings a change in hormones. The menstrual cycle brings a change in hormones. And so this is one factor that interacts with work-related stress, and it makes it difficult for some of these women. That's one factor. The second factor is that society expects women and mothers to work at home more than men and fathers. So now women actually have several shifts that they're dealing with. You've got your full-time job, 8 hours, and then you've got another full-time job at home. The United Nations, according to one survey, they looked at women around the world. On average, they do domestic work in the house 3 times more than men. So this is a second reason that's adding to all the stress. We expect our poor mothers to work at home full-time and to run the house and to raise the kids, and we expect her also to work full-time outside the house. Of course she's going to have elevated stress. Of course that's going to affect her psychologically, mentally, physically. It's going to drain her. Is it justice to impose on your mother to work in these circumstances? Is that part of justice? Is that fair? That's why Islam does not obligate women to work, even though it gave them the right to work. Another factor that leads to greater stress among women is that they also usually care for the elderly. When aging parents are struggling with their health and they need someone to help them out in the house, who's usually there, honestly? The daughter or the son? Who's mainly there caring for their needs? Usually it's the daughter. So we expect them to take care of their homes. We expect them to take care of their aging parents, and we expect them to go and work full-time. Is that fair? All of this is elevating those levels of stress. The fourth factor, and this is one of the most important ones. One reason why many women who are juggling between all these obligations experience elevated stress is because all of their work at home goes unnoticed, unpaid, and most importantly, unappreciated. When you have a job, you feel appreciation for your job in the form of a dollar sign. You get that check, it makes you feel good, right? That's the power of money. For a lot of people, money can numb your pain. It can lower your stress. Bring me right now the most stressed out person in Bedford and give him a check of $1 million, see what happens. He'll forget he even had that stress. Money has that power for a lot of people. We live in a materialistic world, unfortunately. And in the month of Ramadan, one of our challenges is to rise above materialism. Let these good deeds create happiness in your lives. When you help a fellow brother or sister in your community, that should numb your pain more than a check of $1 million. That's what the prophets teach us. That's true happiness. When you serve your Lord, when you help your community, when you do good, when you seek education, you increase your knowledge. Be happier with that. But that's not how society views happiness. Many of these women are experiencing stress because their work goes unappreciated. They work hard at home. They don't get paid for that. Secondly, no one appreciates that. There are many husbands, unfortunately, they're not appreciative of what their wife goes through in the house. That increases the level of stress, my dear brothers and sisters. There was a woman at the time of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa alih. Her name was Asma bint Yazid al-Ansariya. Asma was an educated woman and she was well-spoken. One day she came with a very interesting objection to Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa alih. She came with so much courage, self-confidence. She basically said to the Prophet, I have an objection. You men have the honor of going and being martyrs in the battlefield, and you get all this great reward for being martyrs. You have the honor of going to the pilgrimage, because at that time it was difficult for a woman to travel and go to the pilgrimage. Most women were not able to, given their circumstances. So you go and you become the martyrs in the battlefield and you get the reward of God. You go to the pilgrimage. You're out there in society, active with all these projects that we women cannot run in that society. So you're getting all the good deeds and we're staying at home. And we're taking care of you. We're protecting your homes. When our husbands travel, we protect their wealth because there were no banks back then. How come we don't get any of this reward? The Prophet ﷺ was surprised at her intelligence. And he told his companions, look at this lady. Have you seen a lady who speaks so well and has this much knowledge? Then the Prophet gave her the answer. He told her, when you are at home, raising the children, taking care of the family, taking care of the husband, protecting his wealth when he travels, you are getting the same exact reward of the martyr who dies in the battlefield. And you get the same reward of the one who goes to pilgrimage. She became ecstatic, jubilant. She started to raise her voice amongst her ladies, and she says, I got what I wanted. This is what I wanted to hear from him. I'm so happy right now. The religion of Islam came to appreciate domestic work that women do. Show appreciation. Don't underestimate it. Usually martyrs are heroes, right? There's a war today against Canada and you have soldiers who go and defend your land. You see them as heroes, as martyrs. Islam says, just like you see those martyrs as heroes, your mothers working at home, they're also at the same level of heroism. Don't think that they're any less than those soldiers out there in the battlefield. Or people who go to the pilgrimage, and we know there's a great reward in the pilgrimage to Mecca. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives them all that reward. When you show them that appreciation, that reduces their stress level. Many times we have stress in our homes because the husbands and wives don't appreciate each other. The husband does not appreciate what his wife does, and the wife does not appreciate what her husband does. Just show appreciation, and it does not take a lot to show appreciation. Truly, it is a shame on that husband who sees his wife working so hard, and he cannot bring himself just to thank her, just to show her loving words, to show her appreciation. I know some men tell me, Sayyid, I just can't do it. Sorry. It's tough for me. I can't express my emotions. I can't thank her every day. And then sometimes they'll come up with this messed up logic, Sayyid, if I thank her every day, her ego is going to get bigger and bigger. Habibi, with the attitude I'm seeing in you, her ego's never going to match your attitude. She can never compete with your ego. Show her appreciation. It's none of your business what's going to happen after that. God wants you to show appreciation. Thank her for that. Show her appreciation. And so these studies are demonstrating that one reason why women are experiencing that extra stress is because they are not appreciated. And today, my dear brothers and sisters, society must show more appreciation to women who do spend time at home. Let's not view that negatively. Women who are committed to their marriage and their house and their children and their family, they are the glue of society. They are the heroes of society. Don't underestimate that. We only respect people if they have big careers. If they're making a six-figure salary, we respect them. But a poor lady who's working in the house, serving her Lord, protecting her house, our society today doesn't have much respect for her. Why? Let's show more respect for what happens in our homes. And motherhood itself is the most important profession on earth. The most important profession. Let's not underestimate that. So when it comes to this discussion of work, Islam tells us women have the right to work, but they should not be obligated. Now I have a very controversial question for you. Women who do work, are they happier than women who don't? Married women we're talking about. What do you think? What does society give you the impression? Today, if you look at Hollywood and modern society, popular culture, it gives you the impression that if there's a married lady and she's not working outside the house, she's a miserable lady, right? But what do the statistics show? A study revealed in the LA Times, the Los Angeles Times, showed that married women who do not work outside the house, their primary work is inside the house, are happier than married women who work outside the house. These are not my numbers. These are not my statistics. You can go and fight with the LA Times for this study, brothers and sisters. But that is the reality in many societies. If a married woman feels a sense of purpose in the house with her children, she has a husband who appreciates her, she's happier than women who are working full-time. And they're not as committed to their marriages and to their homes. These are statistics. I can show you tens of them that I have here. Tens of studies that show that they are happier. Now, does this mean that women, you should stop working? No. Absolutely not. It means it should not be forced on you. Don't let society force you. You make the decision. If it's best for your family to work, work. If it's best for your family to stay and be committed in the house with the children, do that. Don't listen to the chatter of society. Don't listen to Hollywood. Don't get your moral compass from Hollywood. Do what's best for you. And if you want the statistics, that's what the statistics are showing. That married women who are appreciated by their husbands and don't work outside the house, on average, they're happier. So if you want happiness, you know where it is. Don't let society obligate you. But yes, at the same time, men must respect that if women want to pursue their career, they want to work, they have that right. But of course, they should not sacrifice their obligations in their married life, in their home, in raising their children. No one can give you that bond with a child like a mother. No one, believe me. Men, yes, we can to an extent. But no one has that instinct to know what's wrong with the child and what the child needs and how to give psychological comfort to the child like a mother. When a mother holds her child and she's feeding the child, she's breastfeeding the child, many studies have shown that the psychological support she's giving to her young child cannot be replaced by anything. Today we're trying to replace all of that, right? Even this very beautiful scene of a mother caring for her child, nursing her child, we replace that with these lousy infant formulas, right? Yalla, just give the formula to your child and I'll be working 10 hours a day, let the babysitter deal with it. That's not how we raise a child. Your child needs that support from you. And Allah is appreciating it. Allah is telling you that's more valuable than many things that happen out there in society. You want the reward of a martyr? You're getting it. So Islam does not impose on women to work, even though it gave them the right to work. Now someone can say, I live in society today and I want to work, and upon divorce, I'm not happy with the dowry. I want something more than the dowry. Are there any Islamic solutions for that? I will mention two quick solutions here, my dear brothers and sisters. The first solution is the following. In your marriage contract, when you're doing your aqd, katb kitab, marriage contract, a woman can stipulate that if the husband divorces her, he's entitled to give her an X amount of money. You can choose whatever you want. You want half of his wealth, a third of his wealth, you want a figure. That's entirely up to you. Now, am I encouraging you to do that? No. I mean, I'm not out here encouraging for people to look at this from a materialistic perspective and marriage is just a bunch of figures. But that is your right. I do have to tell you as a scholar that this is your right. If a wife wants to put that condition in her Islamic marriage contract, she is entitled to do that. What if someone did not put it in their contract? Someone can tell me, Sayyid, I heard the sermon too late and I got married and I'm concerned one day if my husband divorces me, I'm only left with my $5,000 dowry, right? And if you factor inflation 20 years from now, that $5,000 is going to be nothing. So can you give me another alternative, please? And there is no Muslim treasury here to take care of me. So that's the time of Imam Ali alayhi salam, not in my era. What is the alternative for that? Here's another alternative. This one's very interesting. In Islamic law, my dear brothers and sisters, we have a contract called ijara. Ijara, translated in English, is renting or leasing. In Islamic law, you either can rent an object, like a house, a car, or you can rent your work, meaning you offer your services for a pay. In Islamic law, offering your services for an amount is actually a type of lease. But instead of leasing an object, you're leasing your time or your actions. This is called aqd al-ijara. Now here's the good part. I know this is going to spark controversy in the community. But a wife in Islamic law is not obligated to work at home. Yes, she'll get the reward of a martyr if she does, but she's not obligated. Even nursing the child. Did you know in Islamic law, a mother who nurses, breastfeeds the child, she can charge the father. She can. She has that right. She can charge him for that. Cooking, cleaning, you can charge him for that. So women can actually charge for these services. Now, should they? That's another discussion, right? But I'm just telling you what's your right in Islamic law, what you're entitled to. Now, here is the contract that a wife can do with her husband. She can tell him, look, I am doing these services and I will lease all these services. I will charge you, but there's a condition. The condition is I will be entitled to being paid if you divorce me. Not now. That's how the contract works. So I'm doing these services. They're not for free. I'm charging, but I'm not demanding payment. I demand payment if you divorce me. This type of contingency is accepted in Islamic law because contingencies generally in transactions are void. For instance, if you say, I sell my phone to you for $100 if Michael comes back on Friday. That's a contingency. That's a condition that you're stipulating in the contract. Is this a valid sale in Islamic law? No, it's not a valid sale. Why? Because you are basing the contract on someone coming on Friday or not. And we don't know if the person is going to come Friday or Saturday. So this would not be a valid Islamic transaction. But here's a valid Islamic transaction. You say, I sell you the phone for $100. The sale is done. But I'll demand the payment if Michael comes on Friday. So the sale is done, but you're just not asking for the payment. So you can keep the $100. I don't want the $100. If Zaid comes, if Michael comes on Friday, I demand the payment. That is a valid Islamic sale. So the way that this could apply here in the marriage situation, if she were to tell him, I will lease my services if you divorce me, that's not valid. But what she can say is, no, I lease for my services. I actually demand money for my services, and you can stipulate $20,000 a year. I estimate my services to be $20,000 a year. I am doing an actual contract with you. You could write it on a paper, have him sign it, have witnesses so he doesn't deny it later. Okay? Because sometimes they'll deny it. Make sure you record his voice. And tell him the following. I will not ask for the payment. This is the condition I stipulate in the contract. I will only ask for the ijara, for the payment, if you initiate divorce. That way, if he does, she can walk away with something more than the dowry. So according to Islamic law, there are workarounds, my dear brothers and sisters, to this. If we understand our law better, we can apply this. But if I've not done any of these workarounds, and then there's a divorce, and then I take you to court, and half of your money is mine, okay, the law of the land allows that. But the law between you and God does not allow that. That would not be acceptable. That would be theft in Islamic law. If a woman takes her husband to court, and she takes more than the dowry, and she never stipulated a condition that she gets half of his wealth, and she did not do this leasing contract as I explained, she cannot take more than the dowry. If she does, that's not pure lawful money in God's eyes. Yes, the law of the land allows you to do it. You can legally go and do that. But according to Islamic standards, that would be sinful because you're taking money that does not belong to you. So understanding this, my dear brothers and sisters, is extremely important. The final point I will share with you here, going back to verses 20 to 21 of Surah An-Nisa. Remember that ugly Arab custom that some men had? If they wanted to justify not giving the dowry, they would accuse their wives. By accusing them of disloyalty, they would justify not giving them the dowry. Today, what do some men do? Some men, they compel their wives to relinquish their dowry. So you have a husband who is abusive and his wife cannot tolerate him anymore, but he doesn't divorce her. She wants the divorce because she can't stand living with him, but he does not divorce her. Why? Because he knows if he divorces her, he has to give her the dowry. So what does he do? He makes life a living hell for her, such that she comes and she tells him, okay, I don't want the dowry, just divorce me. If you do that, you're condemned by the Holy Quran per these two verses. Give her the right. You have no right to withhold the dowry. The Quran says even if it's a qintar is like a camel load of gold. You agreed to it, you pay it. Don't come up with emotional abuse and psychological tactics to get her to relinquish it. That would be a big sin in the eyes of Allah. At the same time, if a wife wants a divorce from her husband, not because he's abusive, he's a decent husband, he's fulfilling his marital obligations, but she basically is after his money. And I see cases in communities like that. A wife whose only reason why she took her husband to court, he was a loving husband, he was spending on her, a good father, a good man in the house. But she wanted $3 million because his assets were $6 million. She took him to court and she initiated the divorce. This would be a big sin in the eyes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And Allah does not put any blessings in the lives of these people. The Quran in the end tells us, وَلَا تَنْسَوُا الْفَضْلَ بَيْنَكُمْ. If you have disputes, if you have arguments, even if you need to separate, be decent. Never forget the good days when you were living with one another. Never forget that. Sometimes when we become toxic and abusive and we start attacking one another, we just completely bury that past. 20 years she was standing by your side. 20 years he was serving you. He was bringing you food to the table. Now because of a misunderstanding, because of a disagreement, you want to burn all that history? So the Quran recommends that when there's a dispute, solve the dispute. Try not to have the divorce happen. But if it must happen, at least don't make it toxic. Separate peacefully. Thank one another for your services. I respect people who get divorced and they thank one another. There are some who do that. Normally that's not the case, okay? But there are people who do that. I have nothing but respect for you. It's unfortunate that things did not work out, but you're a decent person in my community. You're the mother of my children. You're the father of my children. I'll respect you. And if you have children in the divorce, my dear brothers and sisters, respect one another, because your children are seeing mom and dad fighting day and night. That destroys their psychology. They will grow up with psychological issues when they're exposed to that. وَلَا تَنْسَوُا الْفَضْلَ بَيْنَكُمْ. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to illuminate our hearts and minds with the wisdom of the Quran, with the light of the Holy Quran. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to forgive us in this blessed month of Ramadan. Raise your hands in dua. This is the moment of prayer and supplication. Everyone raise your hands and let's recite this holy verse 5 times together. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. أَمَّنْ يُجِيبُ الْمُضْطَرَّ إِذَا دَعَاهُ وَيَكْشِفُ السُّوءَ أَمَّنْ يُجِيبُ أَمَّنْ يُجِيبُ الْمُضْطَرَّ إِذَا دَعَاهُ وَيَكْشِفُ السُّوءَ يا الله اللهم عجل لوليك الفرج وَاجْعَلْنَا مِنْ أَنصَارِهِ وَأَعْوَانِهِ. O Allah, all those who are ill, who've asked us for our prayers, grant them a speedy recovery. O Allah, all those who are struggling, grant them a speedy relief. O Allah, forgive us our sins. O Allah, grant us the ziyarah of Muhammadin wa Ali Muhammad. O Allah, grant us the shafa'ah of Muhammadin wa Ali Muhammad. Salawat.